Good evening and welcome to Waldorf Live, everybody. I'm your host, Annette Gomez, and I've got a special treat for you this evening. We're sitting down with Commissioner Vice President RalphPatterson. Commissioner, good to see you.
Great to see you, Annette.
Listen, this is a Civics 101 class for me and everybody else that's about to hear this interview.
Fantastic.
So, sir, to charter
Yes.
or not to charter? That is the question. So please explain for those that don't know, what does it mean for a county to be chartered?
Absolutely. Well, a charter just means that the rules of the county are run through the people. Charters look different in different parts of the different parts of the state. We have some counties that are chartered that don't have a county exec, while we do have some that have a county exec. So it's not baked into it to have a county executive. But really, a charter in its essence means that the government is run through the people rather than an elected board of officials.
And speaking of Charles County, let's go back for a minute because this is very personal to you. This is your home.
Yes, ma'am. First generation Charles County. Been here since the mid-'70s. I love it here. I tell my daughters all the time that they grow up in the luckiest place in the world because the Charles County that they're growing up in looked nothing like the Charles County that I grew up in.
Absolutely.
The Charles County I grew up in was a much smaller Charles County, a much more agrarian and rural county. I'll give you a perfect anecdote. When I was in school, there was one light in Charles County.
One traffic light.
Yes, ma'am, and that was the one in La Plata next to the McDonald's, right where Route 6 in La Plata Road.
And they say this was completely rural. So you've seen such a change in your 35 years on this planet, correct?
A little bit more than that, but absolutely. You know, this used to be a lot of just trees and woods. And so it's good to see that it's now been used as a more productive use. And we have residents here who they love this county just as much as I do. So it's great being their commissioner.
Understandably. Now, let's talk about the long-term effect, particularly like the economy. How would becoming chartered affect the economy?
Oh, I think it would be a great boon for this economy. We look at just our neighbors to the north in Prince George's County. They're getting the FBI building, and it's because they had one person that was their advocate in Annapolis who made sure that they worked with our state elected officials as well as our federal to make that happen. And so they're going to be very proud of the fact that the FBI building is going to be there for a long, long time. And so with having one person, county exec, to be able to make sure that we have an advocate in Annapolis, an advocate here in the county, rather than someone who maybe isn't a resident here or maybe doesn't have as much of a vested interest in the county, I think that would be a great idea.
Advocating for the residents
Correct.
of this area. Take me through the process. How does you even start, like the draft process for this?
Great question. There are actually two ways that the Maryland Constitution allows for a charter board to be formed. One can be through a petition, where you get X number of signatures, I think it's 10,000 or so. But the other way is for the county commissioners, the majority of the county commissioners, to form a charter board comprised of 100% citizens who are volunteering their time to listen to the community, gather feedback, and then incorporate it into a charter that will be presented before the county residents for either an up or down vote.
Now, this one is crucial because this is not the first time. This has come before.
That's correct.
So tell me why this one's so important, because we got a major election that's coming up this year.
Absolutely.
The impact.
I think that this is so crucial because our county has changed so quickly and changed so much for the better that we need a more up-to-date and a more modern form of government to accommodate what we want to accomplish in the county. And so by moving from code home rule, which is the current form of government, to a charter, which is a more modern form of government, I think that will give Charles County the added apparatus to be able to be competitive in Annapolis, because that's really where we really need to be competitive, because we need to be on that sort of, I like to give the analogy, we want to be on the varsity team. We're tired of being on the JV.
Absolutely.
And so, for me, it's always about how can we make Charles County better? How can we get more Charles County residents to be in a better place than they were yesterday? And so for me, it's always been personal. I love Charles County. I love Charles County residents.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to do the best I can for them while I'm given the opportunity.
Happening right in your backyard, is what I like to call it. Now, are there specific legal or constitutional requirements for a county to become chartered?
Well, it really is up to the residents. This is an agreement between the government and the people. The people decided what was going to be in the charter. They're going to decide how many council members we have, how long the terms are going to be, removal, all those things are going to be citizen-led. This is not something that someone just comes up with on their own and pushes through on a slim majority vote where 3 people agree on the dais. This is something that the majority of the citizens or the residents will have to agree on in order to put into effect. And so this is completely through the prism of the people, and this is something that the people really need.
And you know you're going to get pushback.
Of course.
But I don't know how else to explain it. Maybe you could explain the impact or give me an example of why this matters so much.
Personally, I just think that people are afraid of the unknown, and they're afraid of the loss of power. Because, there is a very strong system of government that is very antiquated, but it serves a narrow group of people. And so I think the pushback is that, our county is growing and changing very quickly. The county, like I was explaining before, the county I grew up in looks nothing like the county I live in now. And so for people that have grown up in the same environment and during the same time, but from the opposite side of the fence, this can be very disconcerting to see something that is happening right before their eyes that they don't feel they have control over. And so for me, it's always been, let's just let the people decide.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Once you're in Charles County, you're a resident. Your vote counts as much as mine, no matter who you are. And so I've always been, this could have been done many different ways, but I think allowing people to be able to decide on their own and putting it before the people on the ballot is the most democratic way to get this thing done.
And speaking of people, sir, what's the process for involving the public in this chartering process?
Sure.
Or do you go to meetings? How, keeping them up to date? How does that process work?
Absolutely. The charter board members, I know I had 7 different meetings. The charter board members had in the neighborhood of 60 meetings where they would talk, they would engage the residents, they would get feedback from the emails, they would get feedback from all sorts of different positive feedback as well as negative feedback, and they incorporate that into the charter. And so for them, I just applaud them because that's way more than the 2014 charter board did. And so I'm just very happy that they made this a citizen-led effort, and they were very conscious of the fact that citizens were at the center. Citizens wanted this. Citizens should be involved.
And speaking of involvement, there's more ways now that's growing. We have social media, we have all kinds of ways. So there's no excuse for you not to be involved because there's so many avenues that we use to reach the public, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the wonderful thing about this time around. I can't remember what was really going on in 2014 too well, but it was like, there was not nearly as much concerted effort to get the word out about the charter. And because it was held in the summertime when a lot of people weren't here, that led to a lot of low voter turnout. But this one is going to be on the presidential ballot in a very visible election. And so that's going to make sure that this campaign and this election, this ballot initiative will have the greatest turnout of people. And so that's what I'm really excited about.
You are an educator by trade. What lessons have you learned?
I've learned that you have to be able to stick to the process.
Yeah.
You have to be able to drown out the noise and focus on the process. And that for me, it's always been, how can I serve the people? And one of the great tenets I live by is Matthew 25:40, which says, you do for those that you want to be done for you. And so it's very important to me that I'm able to execute that as many ways as possible. And I'm just so glad to be able to be a commissioner because now instead of 1,700 kids in a school, I can help 170,000 people in my community. And so that's always what it's been about. This is not something that I plan to do the rest of my life, but I want to be able to take the moments that I have now and use them in the most productive way. And so for me, this is one, if not one of the most important ways I can see it. So I'm just so happy to be able to be in the moment and have, the supporting cast around me to be able to say that this is something that I was a part of. This wasn't a me thing, this was a we thing. And so I'm just very excited to see what the community has to say.
It's all over your face. It's glowing. And now I understand why you're an educator.
Yeah.
And it's about serving the community and giving back. And what do you want people to take away from this process?
Sure,
because you've been on the front lines fighting.
Sure. I just want people to read for themselves. I've never told anybody that I was pro-charter before the actual charter was written because I felt that wasn't fair. Until the pen and paper and the final stroke of the pen has been there, you can't really see. I will say I'm not in love with 100% of the charter. There are certain things that I don't agree with,
Absolutely.
but that's okay because it gives you an opportunity to evolve with times. Our form of government is very, very antiquated. I just keep saying that over and over again. It's 103 years old, I think, around that time. We can do better than that. I like to give the analogy that we are an iPhone community living on an Android, with Android phone, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's too antiquated. I'm sorry.
I knew there was a reason I like you, Commissioner. See there? I understood.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
I thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Sure.
It's about serving the community and moving forward, and I thank you for that.
Oh,
Thank
no
you for being on
problem.
the front lines.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Have a great day.
You too. That's going to do it for us, everybody. Thank you for joining Waldorf Live. I'm your host. Until next time, Annette Gomez.